Alexandria, a city on the edge of collapse. Riot-torn streets, clashing faiths, and a brewing storm that no one could escape. And at the center of it all stood one woman, Hypatia, a scholar whose brilliance threatened those who ruled through fear, a mind too powerful to be silenced, and a target marked by rising fanaticism. In a world where knowledge was dangerous and truth had a price, her fate became inevitable. This is the final stand of Alexandria's last great thinker, a story of obsession, betrayal, and the terrifying moment when an entire city turned against its brightest light.
Hypatia, the philosopher of Alexandria. Dawn over Alexandria. At the edge of the Mediterranean, where the sea glittered like polished glass and the winds carried the smell of salt and ink, the ancient city of Alexandria awakened under a pale morning sun. The city was a mosaic of contradictions, grandeur and ruin, enlightenment and fanaticism, curiosity and fear, all coexisting beneath the towering shadow of a civilization that had once claimed to be the intellectual heart of the world. And in this sprawling city of marble colonnades, bustling markets, and towering temples, one figure moved with quiet purpose. She was not dressed in royal garments. No golden crown adorned her hair. Yet every scholar, every mathematician, and every philosopher who crossed her path felt the same unspoken truth. Hypatia of Alexandria carried the weight of 1,000 years of wisdom in her hands. She walked through the city like a living embodiment of reason, poised, deliberate, illuminated from within by something far more powerful than wealth or divine right. The citizens who watched her pass did not see a mere woman. They saw the last flicker of a dying age of knowledge. The dawn light softened the edges of Alexandria's famed structures, reflecting off the steps of the great library's remaining halls Hypatia had practically grown up in. Even now, after decades of political turmoil, fires, riots, and religious division, she continued to climb those steps every morning, as though the world beyond the walls could not touch her. But the world was changing, and change did not care for philosophers. The legacy she inherited. Hypatia's father, Theon, a mathematician and scholar of unwavering discipline, had raised her among scrolls, star maps, and the whispered ambitions of a mind built for inquiry. While other girls learned household duties, Hypatia learned to chart the heavens, calculate planetary orbits, and dissect the logic hidden beneath myth. From her earliest years, it was clear that she possessed an intellect that outpaced her era. Some in Alexandria admired her brilliance, others feared it. A learned woman was already an oddity. A woman who surpassed men? A woman who dared speak in the intellectual arenas governed by centuries of male voices? That was nearly heresy. Yet Theon had insisted that knowledge did not belong to men alone, and Hypatia believed him. The city that listened. As she made her way through the morning crowds, merchants called out the day's prices. Children darted between stalls, and Roman officials barked orders at soldiers polishing their armor. But when Hypatia approached the steps of the lecture hall, the atmosphere shifted. Young men, students from every corner of the empire, stood waiting for her, scrolls pressed against their chests in anticipation. In a city fractured by religion and politics, Hypatia had created the one sanctuary left, a space where debate, geometry, astronomy, and philosophy still mattered. She entered the hall not as a performer or a prophet, but as a vessel of truth, and when she spoke,
Her voice carried not force, but clarity, a calm, steady resonance that compelled even the most arrogant student to listen. To understand the universe is to understand ourselves, and to fear knowledge is to fear the greatest instrument we possess, the human mind. Her teachings were not sermons, they were invitations. Invitations to question, to probe, to wonder. And for many students, it was the first time they had been granted permission to think freely. A city in turmoil. Beyond the lecture hall, however, Alexandria was fraying at the seams. The Roman Empire was declining. The Christian church was rising. And anger, once scattered, was beginning to gather like a storm waiting for the right moment to break. Hypatia remained at the center of it all, not because she sought power, but because knowledge itself had become political. She maintained friendships with statesmen, scholars, and religious leaders alike. But neutrality, in a world hungry for scapegoats, was a dangerous position. To some, she was a symbol of enlightenment. To others, a threat to be extinguished. A student who watched closely. Among her students sat a young man named Orestes, thoughtful, ambitious, fascinated. He listened not only with his ears, but with his entire being. The more he learned, the more he clung to Hypatia's every word, as though her teachings were a compass guiding him out of darkness. Years later, Orestes would rise to become Alexandria's prefect, a political leader caught between two worlds, the philosophical one Hypatia represented, and the increasingly powerful Christian hierarchy led by Archbishop Kirill. But for now, he was only a student sitting at her feet, unaware that their fates would one day intertwine with catastrophic consequence. The lesson that set everything into motion. That morning, Hypatia unfurled a large scroll showing a geometrical representation of the solar system. The hall fell silent. With patient elegance, she traced the orbits with her stylus. Do not assume that all answers are already known. The moment we stop questioning is the moment we begin to lose ourselves. It was the kind of phrase that would echo in Orestes' mind for years, and the kind of phrase that would make others, especially those who preached certainty, fear her influence. Outside, Alexandria's streets hummed with tension. Inside, Hypatia continued her lecture, unaware that forces far beyond her walls had started to watch her more carefully. For now, she remained untouched by the rising chaos. For now, she believed knowledge could still overcome ignorance. But the world had begun to shift, and when the world shifts, even the brightest light can find itself surrounded by shadows. Shadows over reason. The city that was no longer the same. In the months that followed, Alexandria began to change in ways even the sharpest minds struggled to interpret. What had once been a city of discourse and debate now pulsed with tension. Voices grew sharper, tempers shorter, and systems of belief, once able to coexist, started to collide with unavoidable force. Hypatia sensed the shift long before others acknowledged it. The noise in the marketplace was different. The conversations between scholars carried an edge of caution. Messengers from the empire arrived with clipped, nervous wording. Even the sea winds, which once brought the scent of parchment and ink from the library, now carried something heavier, the smell of fear masked behind proclamations of piety. The Roman Empire was weakening, its fractured political structures cracking under the weight of corruption, civil strife, and the growing power of the Christian Church. Alexandria, always prone to unrest, had become a battleground of ideologies. And Hypatia, a woman who believed in logic above all else, now found herself standing in a world that no longer valued what she represented. a storm brewing between two men. In the center of this storm were two men whose fates were becoming dangerously entangled. Orestes, the Roman prefect, who believed that reason could still hold a place in politics. Bishop Kirill, the rising Christian leader whose ambition burned hotter than any fire lit in the empire's temples. Both men wanted control. Both believed they were the rightful shepherds of Alexandria's future, and both sought Hypatia's counsel, but for different reasons. Orestes valued her intellect, her clarity, her ability to see beyond the pettiness of politics. She had been her mentor, her guide, perhaps even the foundation upon which she built her sense of justice. Whenever turmoil arose, he turned to her not for comfort, but for truth. Bishop Kirill, however, saw her differently. To him, Hypatia was a danger, not because she wielded soldiers or wealth, but because she wielded something far more threatening: influence without allegiance. She did not kneel before the church, nor swear loyalty to Rome. She belonged to a world of pure thought, a world Kirill could not control. And the more people listened to her, the less people listened to him. The whispers began. Rumors started small, as they always do. She supports Orestes against the church. She practices forbidden pagan mathematics. She prevents Orestes from converting. She reads the stars in ways no woman should. Hypatia ignored them at first. She had spent her life rising above pettiness, and she believed truth would reveal itself in time.